Yeah, dear listener, I like to speak of economy in this video. I like to speak of a new financial architecture, which is, so far I know, that my idea. And I want to explain this financial architecture in this video. I'm starting with a cycle of real economy. That is, I've depicted it here as two basic elements: a bubble of money on top, where the gains are landing into, and a real economic cycle which rotates clockwise with the wages. And yes, this can be described in different ways, or can be added different information. Let me speak here of the basic mechanism is the following: that a good is sold as something which someone buys, is sold, and with his selling a part of it vanishes in the big bubble of money, what I call the big money bubble, and the rest is spent in wages and resources and investments in producers' goods, and some is going into taxes. So always what I'm predicting for capitalism is that capitalism will deprive the money bubble, the real economic cycle, of its money, and in the end all money will be vanished into a big bubble. And this is only buffered by different mechanisms, buffered by reinvestments into expansion of production, onto new markets, into new fields of products, and so on. And it is buffered by national debt, by public debt, which always re-injects money from the big money bubble into the real economic cycle. So I've explained these mechanisms of buffering. So, yes, and to public debt I want to say something. I think that public debts should be annulled, because their basic function is a competition about infrastructure between different states, and the buffering of this of the real economic cycle, that is not vanishing altogether too fast into the money bubble. And I think these are two elements which are necessary to maintain capitalism. It was necessary to maintain capitalism, or the later element was necessary to maintain capitalism, that the money is buffering the real economy. And the other thing is something for the capitalists, for the entrepreneurs. If the states are competing about their infrastructure measures, and in the end no one will have something from it, because all are doing the same, and so it levels the effect levels out. There will be many additional jobs, only a small advantage of additional jobs. And I think further that the banking crisis is really something which is due to the rich class and the super rich class, and I think it is okay or advisable that they contribute a systematic contribution now, which would be to annul the state debts. And about the closer issue of state debts, I cannot go into that here. That the central banks have bought so many of these toxic papers. I cannot go into this discussion here. Yes. Now, what is a policy against mass joblessness? What is the present policy? The present financial policy is to swamp investors and banks with cheap money, and this oversizes the bubble of money again, and it is speculating on the financial markets instead of creating jobs. Why this why are these trillions of dollars which are pumped into this bubble not creating jobs? They are not creating jobs because the demand is missing. In the real economic cycle, the real economic cycle is sucked out during the last decades or so. It is the wages did not grow with the same rate than the gains, or with a much lower rate. So, what have we to do here? The demand is missing, and now the bubble is oversized, and the money in the bubble, because the demand is missing, cannot create much investments. So it will not be, it is a little bit is invested in reshifting investments, that is, that one business is closed and another is opened and prospering or so, like from desktop computers to tablets or so. The money is shifted from one end of the markets into another, and by this, in this way, because it is always the reshifting money, the reshifting investment is always an additional investment. A few jobs are created additional, and then a little bit demand is created additionally, but that is not very much. So the moment these large sums of money on which are now put into this bubble on the financial markets, the trillions of dollars, when they have to be repaid, they cannot be repaid from the real economic cycle, because the real economic cycle is sucked out even more, or not more, not less than before. It stays the same. There happen not very much on it. And so what will happen is that because this money from the bubble, if it is invested, it will end up in different positions. A part in wages, a part in taxes, a part in the bubble again as gains, and a part in property, and all these positions have to be served. So the loaning position, the position of the borrowed, that the money is borrowed, that has to be paid back. It can never be paid back from the real economic cycle. So the system will stumble over its own feet. And what is done is pressing down the wages for the extraction of this money, for the sake of extraction of this again borrowed money, but cheaply borrowed in masses, as a mass of money. The wages are pressed down and to extract this money, and that is a very negative effect of the system for the workers. Now, let me Alternatively, what can be done? I think what can be done is that the money is given to, instead of to the banks and investors, the same money which is printed by the central banks of today, which they will never see again in the end, or not in total, not everything. Because it's just non-existing money. It does not exist in the real economic cycle. Because they will never see it again, then it has to be it can be given to the poor. It's the same money is printed and given to the poor, creating demand, creating jobs, solving the problem of poverty. And so when the poor are spending this money, it is given to the poor, it is given to ecological projects, it is given to public people who are serving the public, and all that. That is my idea. Why is that simple idea not done? It is, on one hand, I cannot explain it because it is so simple and clear. But on the other hand, it has certain reasons why it is not done, which are apart from social envy or something like that. That is, yes. What are the reasons why it is not done? The problem is that if the state begins to hand out money printed from the printing facility of maybe 2% or so of the GDP per year, also, and gives this money to the poor, or gives it money to people in the population, then different lobby groups will come and they say, give us money, give us money, give us money, and so the politicians will make election goodies also because they want to be voted again, and that of course would result in a boosted spending of printed money, because everyone wants a share or so, and that is not the purpose of it. My purpose of it is to extinguish poverty, to combat poverty in this way. Only the poor would get this, and a few very special fields of investment would get this money, and it would be ruled by the central banks to give it to these purposes. That would be the new role of the central banks. Then the next problem is this money would create inflation. Inflation would rise, and because the poor give out money, and that boosts the money in the real economic cycle. This 2% of the GDP, they rotate clockwise a few times a year in the economic cycle, and then it creates GDP. And that is the problem, that it will also create inflation. For example, this 2% of the GDP will create an inflation of 5% of the GDP. And now, to buffer that, or to come along with this problem, the problem of inflation of a single state, for example, a single state would, okay, well, let me deal with inflation in general first. Then inflation in general, the wages will of course adjust it all half year or all year with 5% if the inflation is 5%. That is clear. And the second thing, that the inflation will the inflation will rise the prices for external, for internal and domestic goods. Domestic goods because the nominal value of the price will rise, and external goods, foreign goods, because the foreign exchange rate will drop, of the currency will drop, and this is one problem. And these problems of inflation, they will be dealt with in a system, in a worldwide system within the WTO or United Nations, a worldwide system of currency, of printing facilities, which are simultaneously used by different states and distributed in a cooperative manner between different units or so, of states or so, between different states. They will be distributed on an agreement, on the basis of an agreement, on a trade agreement or so. And with this kind of agreement, all states will have a certain inflation of, let's say, 5%, but relatively their currencies will not shift. So it will be a stable system of currencies established in that way. Yes, then let me explain, an advantage of, of course the advantage of inflation is to boost the export, and that is the advantage of the inflation. But this advantage will fall away because relative to each other, all worldwide currency will stay fixed. And what we have here for the economy, and special, it is a kind of push and pull factor. The money will be pushed by inflation from the accounts of the rich and super rich into the economy, because their money is melting away with 5% per year. And it's a pull factor because this money is invested, demand will be created and will stimulate the economy. So we have a push and pull factor, and both factors together make up the advantage of this new system. And the central banks, they will not get back the money. It's not a system to borrow money or to lend money to someone. It is a system where the money is just printed and injected into the real economic cycle, and in this way creating demand. Now, let me come to the point of inflation closer. I've made an investigation into this inflation point, and this investigation is contained in this table here, and it is the figures of economic growth and inflation between 1969 and 1978 in Germany. It was in this period the average over the whole decade. To middle out the volatility of the data, I've drawn the averages, and it is 3.6% of growth and 5.7% of inflation in this period. And the ratio, the quotient between growth and inflation, is 0.78. And for the period 2004 to 2013, the two values growth, the value growth is 1.26% and inflation is 1.61%. So both values are very different, and are different. These are different periods of the economy. I mean, not only the years are far away from each other, but the periods are far away from each other. But also, the first period was the boom years, and the second period is the lean years. And here the factor of growth, ratio of growth to inflation, comes out as 0.77%. So it is 1% precisely the same factor in both periods. So I've not investigated further into this, but it seems here a very strong suggestion that economic growth and inflation are fixed to each other or related to each other by a very fixed factor. And that means we cannot have economic growth without inflation. And so the monetary stability policy of the central banks is not appropriate. What I want to talk about, let me see, or what things I want to talk about more, what more things I want to talk about. Yeah, good. Okay. Let it be. Let this be sufficient for today, and I want to finish by a little question of mine. This essay or this lecture is for an idea for Obama, to President Obama of the United States. I would propose it to him, to introduce this economic system, and if any people like it, or any people want to promote my idea, to help me. I'm a socially disclassed person, and I would like to. I need money for life projects, and my friends in Africa, which really need money for their living. So I'm glad about any contribution, about any reward for my project from any side. And if Obama likes his project, and if he likes this essay, or he likes to take up the project, and if he rewards me, I would be happy. Okay, thank you.